There comes a moment in life when you realize that the loudest person in the room is often the most insecure. In our younger years, we're conditioned to believe that speaking up, arguing back, and constantly voicing our thoughts equates to strength. We think that silence means surrender, that quietness equals submission. But in old age, the wisdom accumulated through decades of living starts to reveal the truth. Silence is not weakness. It is strength, discipline, and control. Silence is what happens when your spirit no longer needs outside validation. It's what rises when you've been through storms, betrayals, and losses, and survived them all. You've shouted in the past, you've argued, defended, and pleaded. You've explained yourself more times than you can count. And in return, you've learned that very few truly listen with the intention to understand. Most people only hear what they want, and they judge based on their limited perspective. So you stop offering yourself up for dissection. You stop speaking into deaf ears. You begin to notice the value of pausing, of observing, of letting others speak while you simply absorb. This isn't passivity. This is mastery. When you remain silent in the face of ignorance, when you no longer react to provocation, when you no longer waste your breath trying to educate those who are committed to misunderstanding you, you are demonstrating a deep inner power, a strength that doesn't need to announce itself. Silence gives you room to feel your intuition. It allows you to study people and environments. You begin to see through masks. You start to recognize patterns, agendas, and energy. You're no longer pulled into every argument or every issue, not because you don't care, but because you know what it costs you. Your silence becomes your armor. Your space becomes sacred. You choose your battles, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. In silence, you don't just hear the world, you hear yourself again. You start to reconnect with the version of you that's been buried under years of roles, responsibilities, expectations, and noise. And in that stillness, in that calm absence of words, you find something more valuable than winning any debate. You find peace, clarity, and the unmatched strength of self. Possession with age comes a profound realization. Not every situation deserves your attention, and not every person deserves access to your inner world. As the years go by, the true cost of mental energy becomes undeniable. You begin to understand that emotional exhaustion isn't just a temporary feeling. It takes a toll on your body, your spirit, and even your outlook on life. In youth, we often give away our energy freely. We involve ourselves in everyone's drama, absorb others' negativity, and stretch ourselves thin trying to please or fix others. But in old age, something inside you begins to whisper louder, guard your peace. Mental energy is like currency, and every interaction either invests in your peace or bankrupts it. Arguing with people who have no intention of understanding you, explaining yourself repeatedly to those who already made up their minds, giving advice to those who ask but never listen. All of these are silent drains. You don't notice it immediately, but over time, it becomes clear too many open emotional tabs slow down your life the same way too many open apps drain a phone battery. You've come too far and endured too much to continue allowing your mental space to be cluttered by meaningless stress. Whether it's family dynamics, workplace politics, or social expectations, you begin to prioritize your peace above your need to be involved. You start filtering conversations. Not all words deserve responses. You begin limiting time with people who leave you emotionally depleted. You may love them, but love does not mean unlimited access. As you get older, you also become more sensitive to environments. A room full of chaos, a person full of conflict, a space filled with noise, you feel it instantly. And instead of tolerating it like you might have done in the past, now you quietly remove yourself. You stop explaining. You stop trying to make others comfortable at the expense of your own sanity. You stop sacrificing your silence just to avoid awkwardness. You no longer feel guilty for choosing solitude over company or peace over connection. You realize that not every relationship is meant to follow you into your later years. Even the thoughts in your own head begin to evolve. You learn to stop overthinking everything, to stop replaying old mistakes, and to stop anticipating problems that haven't arrived. You focus more on the present moment, protecting your mental landscape like a sacred garden. You remove weeds, create boundaries, and nurture only what brings clarity, stillness, and inner growth. You recognize how rare a calm mind is in this chaotic world, and so you protect it the same way you protect your health, with intention, discipline, and love. You recognize that your peace is no longer negotiable. There comes a point in life, usually in the quiet moments of old age, when you begin to recognize just how long you've placed yourself second, third, or even last. You've spent decades caring for others, raising children, supporting a partner, sacrificing for your family, helping friends in crisis, working tirelessly to earn your place in the world. All that giving, all that effort, it has shaped you, matured you, and tested your limits. But now, at this stage of life, there's a quiet awakening. You realize that no one else is responsible for giving you the care and attention you so freely gave to others. It's your turn to focus on yourself, not out of selfishness, but out of survival. Focusing on yourself in old age is not abandonment of duty, it is a return home, a return to the soul within you that has been patient, neglected, and waiting. And it's about reconnecting with what you need physically, emotionally, spiritually. Because the truth is, if you don't start prioritizing yourself, no one else will. People have grown used to your giving nature. They may not notice that you're tired or hurting or yearning for a break, because for so long you've hidden it well. But now you're allowed to stop hiding. You're allowed to reclaim your energy and direct it inward. You begin to listen more closely to your body, resting when it calls for rest, nourishing it with what feels right, moving it with gentleness instead of punishment. You pay attention to your mental state, asking yourself what you truly want, what brings you joy, what drains you, what heals you. You stop overcommitting and you stop apologizing for choosing solitude. You begin to understand that silence, space, and simplicity are not luxuries, they're necessities. You also start to rediscover the things you once loved. Maybe it's reading in peace, walking in nature, listening to music, or simply sipping your tea without interruption. These small acts become sacred rituals, reminders that you are still here, still alive, still worthy of joy. You start feeding your soul the same way you once fed others' needs. And perhaps most importantly, you begin to mentally shift from how can I help them to how can I help myself heal. You understand that constantly pouring from an empty cup is no longer sustainable. Your energy must be preserved for the things that matter most: your health, your peace, your purpose. You have earned the right to retreat, to reset, to restore what the world has taken from you over time. You don't need to justify this self-focus to anyone. Those who truly love you will understand. And those who don't, one of the most liberating lessons that comes with age is understanding that you are not responsible for saving, fixing, or rescuing everyone. In your younger years, you might have felt compelled to correct people's behavior, to offer advice even when it wasn't asked for, to step into roles of support and solution. Every time someone around you struggled, you may have believed it was your duty as a parent, a friend, a partner, or simply as a good person to intervene, to help, to repair the brokenness you saw in others. But over time, after being burned by ungrateful responses, after watching people ignore your wisdom, after realizing how heavy the emotional load had become, a new truth slowly settles into your bones. You cannot fix people who aren't ready to change. You begin to understand that everyone is on their own timeline of growth, healing, and self-awareness. And no matter how much you love someone, you cannot force their transformation. You can offer insight, but you can't implant it. You can share your wisdom, but you cannot make someone receive it. You can warn them of the fire, but if they insist on walking into it, you must let them. Their journey is not your burden to carry. In old age, you've likely seen how advice can fall on deaf ears. You've witnessed people reject help, ignore hard truths, or repeat the same mistakes you once tried to protect them from. You've realized that pouring your energy into someone who refuses to see the problem only leaves you drained and frustrated. So you begin to step back, not out of apathy, but out of clarity. You know now that people change when they are ready, never when you are ready for them to. And trying to force that process only creates resistance and resentment. Letting go of the need to fix others also allows you to finally focus on your own healing. So often, we distract ourselves with other people's issues because we don't want to confront our own pain. But when you stop carrying everyone else's weight, you start to realize how much lighter you feel. You start recognizing how much of your time, peace, and emotional capacity was being sacrificed in the name of helping. You see now that true compassion doesn't mean losing yourself to someone else's chaos. It means honoring your limits while still holding space for love. This shift also teaches you something else. Most people don't want solutions. They want attention, validation, or a sounding board. And when you stop offering advice and instead respond with quiet presence or silence, you start to see who is genuinely seeking growth and who is simply venting without intention. You no longer feel the urgency to step in every time something goes wrong. You stop inserting yourself into dramas that were never yours to resolve. You stop being the emotional sponge for people who never take responsibility for their own lives. And in that stillness, in that pulling back, something incredible happens. With age comes an unshakable truth. You no longer need to prove anything to anyone. Your life, the struggles you've endured, the wisdom you've earned, the silent sacrifices you've made is the loudest statement you could ever make. In your younger years, you may have felt the need to constantly explain yourself, justify your actions, or convince others of your worth. You may have gone out of your way to be understood, to be accepted, to be heard. But now, with the years behind you and perspective in your hands, you see clearly you are not here to convince the world. You are here to live in peace with yourself. You have lived through seasons others wouldn't survive. You have carried silent battles with grace, healed wounds without applause, and made decisions that others may never understand, but that were necessary for your own growth and survival. You've known heartbreak, loss, betrayal, and disappointment. You've also known love, joy, success, and resilience. These aren't things you need to explain anymore. These are things that live in the lines of your face, in the patience of your voice, in the calmness of your presence. They are embedded in how you move through the world without seeking validation or attention. You begin to understand that real power is quiet. It's not found in loud speeches or constant declarations. It's found in the way you hold yourself after being broken. It's in the way you remain kind in a world that has tried to harden you. It's in the way you walk away from disrespect without needing to retaliate. Your life has become your voice, and it speaks more eloquently than any argument ever could. People may still try to challenge you. They may question your choices, misunderstand your silence, or misinterpret your distance. But you no longer feel the urge to correct them. Let them think what they will. You've seen too much to be shaken by surface-level opinions. You no longer invest time into changing minds that are closed or explaining your path to those who haven't walked in your shoes. The need to be right has faded. The desire to be understood has softened. And in its place, a quiet dignity has taken root, a deep knowing that your story is enough, whether or not anyone else sees its full depth. What matters now is not what others think of your journey, but how you honor the steps you've taken. You understand that wisdom isn't always vocal, it radiates from within, and as others rush to be seen and heard, you sit back, grounded, aware that what truly matters cannot be shouted. It must be lived, felt, and witnessed in the quiet confidence of someone who has nothing left to prove and everything left to cherish. One of the most powerful freedoms that comes with aging is the release from the invisible chains of other people's opinions. In youth, the desire to be liked, accepted, and approved of often guides our actions more than we realize. We shape our decisions around what others expect. We silence our needs to avoid judgment. We suppress our authenticity out of fear of rejection. But as the years pass and experiences accumulate, we begin to understand how deeply exhausting it is to constantly seek approval. Eventually, we ask ourselves, why do I need their permission to be who I already am? You've likely spent decades adjusting yourself to fit into roles that were never fully comfortable. You played the part of the obedient child, the patient spouse, the dependable friend, the tireless worker, and in doing so, you may have buried pieces of your real self in exchange for praise, harmony, or acceptance. But in old age, something within you begins to rise, a quiet, unwavering voice that no longer wants to perform. It wants to be authentically, freely, unapologetically. You stop obsessing over what others think because you finally see how fleeting and unstable opinions really are. One day, they admire you. The next day, they criticize you. People project their own insecurities, expectations, and fears onto you and call it judgment. But none of that truly defines your worth. You learn that being misunderstood is not a crisis. It's a sign that you've grown beyond needing validation. You no longer bend yourself into shapes to please everyone. You let people form their opinions, and you let them keep them. This inner shift isn't arrogance. It's peace. It's the deep understanding that no one else is living your life. They don't know the private battles you've faced. They don't carry your memories, your griefs, your quiet triumphs. And because of that, their approval becomes irrelevant. You no longer give people the power to dictate your self-worth. You begin choosing what feels right to your soul, even if it doesn't make sense to others. You also notice how attachment to approval creates emotional dependency. You realize how often you might have hesitated to speak up, to say no, or to walk away simply because you feared being disliked. Now, you start setting boundaries without explanation. You start honoring your time, energy, and values, even if it means others feel disappointed. You've learned that protecting your peace is worth more than pleasing someone temporarily. You understand that real love, real respect, and real connection don't come from constantly adjusting yourself. They come from standing firm in your truth. And with that realization, you also stop over-explaining. You stop trying to justify your preferences, your choices, your silence. You begin to rest in the comfort of your own presence, knowing that your journey doesn't need applause to be valid. You begin to live more quietly, not to disappear, but to reclaim the energy you once spent trying to be seen and approved by others. Let me know when you're ready for key point 7, and I'll continue in this same thoughtful style. As you age, the external world doesn't necessarily slow down, but you begin to, not because you're giving up, but because you finally understand the value of stillness. In earlier stages of life, everything was a rushing to meet expectations, to prove your worth, to succeed, to respond, to fix, to make others comfortable. Life felt like a race without a clear finish line, driven by pressure, noise, and urgency. But over time, the truth reveals itself. There is more wisdom in stillness than in motion, more clarity in silence than in noise. Stillness is not about doing nothing. It is about doing everything with presence. It is about creating intentional space between stimulus and response. It's the moment when your heart, your breath, your thoughts, and your spirit align, when the distractions fall away and you finally hear your own voice again. In a world obsessed with action and reaction, stillness becomes your sanctuary. When you embrace stillness in old age, you start seeing life through a different lens. You begin to notice how many things you once thought were urgent were actually unimportant. how many arguments were avoidable, how much noise you invited into your life, be it through people, media, obligations, or expectations. You begin to strip away the unnecessary. You stop forcing conversations. You stop chasing relationships. You stop needing to fill every silence with explanation. You learn to sit with your thoughts, not to judge them, but to observe them, to understand them, to release them. Stillness gives you the gift of clarity. It allows you to sense the energy in a room before anyone speaks. It helps you recognize when someone's words don't match their intentions. It allows you to reflect before reacting, to think before speaking, to feel before deciding. And in stillness, you no longer operate on autopilot. You live deliberately. You trust your intuition more. You listen to the wisdom within you rather than being tossed around by the chaos outside of you. Stillness also allows space for healing. It gives your nervous system a break from years of being in survival mode. It invites peace into your body, your home, your spirit. You no longer feel the need to defend yourself, to rush, to explain. You understand that not everything requires your attention. That peace is not found in constant doing, but in being, in resting, in observing, in letting go. And in those quiet moments, those mornings with the window open and the birds singing, those afternoons with no agenda, those evenings spent in quiet reflection, you realize that this stillness is not empty. It is full of insight, full of lessons, full of calm strength. It is in this space that the deepest parts of you begin to speak, the parts that were silenced by the demands of youth, the parts that long to breathe, to expand, to feel safe enough to simply exist without needing to perform, defend, or prove. Let me know if you'd like me to compile these into a formatted document or expand the conclusion of the speech.